Hi everyone, welcome to Compass Teachers Show. I'm your host, Stephen. My job is to interview teachers around the world and tease out their teaching tactics, education research, or tools they use. Hopefully this show can offer some ideas for you to experiment in your classroom. Today our amazing guest is Rebecca Chambers. Rebecca is a high school teacher in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Her goal as a teacher was to make a classroom a place where students could feel good about who they were, gain self-confidence, and to know what she cared about them. She also wanted to make it a place where students were engaged and could get out of their seats to learn the material. She's a founder of Unlearning Academy, an online community connecting schools for the next generation of social change makers. Today, I'm really excited to talk with Rebecca and learn more her unlearning journey. Rebecca, thank you for coming to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I learned that when you started teaching, you followed very traditional ways of teaching. But in 2011, Sir Ken Robinson's really popular TED Talk, Do Schools Kill Creativity?, changed you. Why and how did Sir Ken Robinson's talk inspire you?
That's a really good question, and a question I get a lot. And as I've kind of gone through and really thought about this question, I'd have to say that definitely I was in the beginning teaching in a very traditional manner. I started in 2003, and I got into teaching, I think, for different reasons than some teachers. I was not a fantastic student, and I did not love my high school experience. There were things about it that I did love, but looking back, looking at the school part, I always, I did okay. I did fine, but I always kind of wanted to do things my own way, and that just never really fit in the box. It was, that's nice, that's a great idea, but that's not what we're looking for. So. I think as I went through high school, I struggled a little bit and never really felt as though I was smart. And I'm doing air quotes because, what we define as smart in traditional school is not my definition of smart anymore. Anyway, so when I got into teaching, I really felt as though right from the get-go, I wanted to change things for students like myself. I wanted, like it says in my write-up there, I really wanted to focus on, that relationship piece and confidence building, because my philosophy at the beginning was, if I can make somebody feel good about who they are and what they bring to the world, then I think I've done my job. But I did really deliver my material in a very traditional way, because that's what I knew. And when I went through teachers college, that's what I, prepared. Anyway, so I tried to make things a little bit more entertaining and to, like it says, get us out of our seats and moving around. But then I did see Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk, and it really was, I would have to say, my aha moment, where it was the first time that somebody was saying out loud, I think, everything that I had been feeling, but didn't even realize it. And when I saw it, I just said, all right, you know what? Enough is enough. What I'm doing right now is really not helping these students. It's not preparing them as I'm supposed to be for the world that they're going to live in. And so it was at that point, it was a huge pivot. I started to do all kinds of research, looked into obviously Sir Ken and his thoughts, and it just kind of snowballed from there, and I just found so many amazing progressive educators from around the world. I joined Twitter, which was transformative. It gave me the opportunity to connect with people from all over the world and see what they were doing, and then I just started to change the way that I did things in my classroom.
Great. Yeah, I really love how you get your learnings into actions. So since then, you advocated the Unlearning with Us movement. I'm curious about how unlearning process looked like in your own journey.
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about there is, it really opened my eyes to the fact that I can no longer stand at the front and be the keeper of all knowledge. So that was in 2011. And obviously, technology has changed dramatically, from when I was in high school, but even in my own career, when I started in 2003, I remember using web quests, and they were really cool. Like the kids could go on and, follow these different things online, and it kind of took you through this quest, and that was cool. But that was kind of the technology that was there. And just how everything progressed so quickly, I too needed to sort of really dive into what kind of way can I progress in my own classroom. And I came across educators like Alan November. He was kind of in the beginning. I also had an amazing, not that he was my superintendent at the time, but I had the opportunity to attend a conference within our board called Lead the Way. And Peter Gamwell was a superintendent in our board. And he spoke, and it really resonated with me. His focus, he's written a book in the last little while called The Wonder Wall. And it's all about, finding the brilliance in every child and helping them just pursue what they want to be learning and using that brilliance. So it was just this, it was bouncing from one educator to the next, looking at, progressive schools around the world. There was something I came across in Massachusetts. It was called the Independent School, where the kids had created a school within a school. And so I really jumped into that, and I tried some things out in my classroom. And then I met, where else did I came across another school called Iowa Big, and really loved what they were doing. I visited a private school here in Ottawa called Blue Sky School, and another educator from our board who had kind of branched out and decided to open up her own school, and really got a lot of information through what she was doing. And every time I kind of came across someone, I would, contact them and have conversations. And then I would come back, and I mean, there's a group of students who now are in their second year out of high school. And I definitely call them my guinea pigs, because they never knew what was coming next. We were always experimenting with something, some new way of learning and some new way of connecting with community and all those things. And it was just, so the unlearning process for me was the reading and the gradual release of what I understood school to be, and really reimagining what I wanted it to look like by, taking snippets from all these different people that I had come across.
I see. That sounds lots of effort to do this unlearning process, but I think we can get deeper to know how a teacher can start it. But before we doing that, I'm curious about what did you see the transformation in your students before and after the unlearning process? If there's a story that you can share, that would be great, as you can give us a deeper understanding of that.
Yeah, I think, so for people to understand what it is that I do, is I moved away from we're all going to do this to what do you want to do and how can I support you individually. And so seeing that shift, one of the biggest things was, when you're teaching 30 kids, I can pick out whatever I think is the most interesting thing from the curriculum. And as I teach those different sort of snippets in the curriculum, you might have 4 or 5 kids out of that 30 that are really interested in that particular topic. And then you move on to another one, and then maybe you have a different 4 or 5 that are interested in that specific topic. And so then you have like 3/4 of your class that are just kind of going through the motions. So making that transformation to more of a personalized learning experience, not that I would say that everyone was 100% engaged in my classes when I made the switch, but it was kind of the first time ever where they were all getting the opportunity to really dive into things that they really were more interested in the curriculum, while, maybe I'm learning, I taught grade 10 history, and maybe I'm really into warfare and I want to dive really deep into that, but maybe the person beside me really wants to learn about women's rights. And then the person beside that wants to look at other social justice movements. And, it was really interesting to watch them really get to have the opportunity to learn the curriculum, but in a way that they were more engaged because they wanted to dive further into a specific topic. And they still had the opportunity to also learn the other stuff that I would have taught because the person beside them was doing something. And there were a lot of great conversations about curriculum that I, as the teacher, wasn't the expert anymore. There were different people in the room who became the experts, and they would share the different things. I have lots of different examples of kids. One specifically, I don't even know which one to pick. One student really didn't love school, and I had the opportunity to teach him for 3 years in a row. And when I work with my students in the beginning, they're very confused. When I ask them in grade 10, okay, well, what is it that you want to learn? And what are you passionate about? What do you care about? And often it's just like, well, I don't know. I've never been asked that. And just tell me what I should be learning. So I teach the social sciences. And so this boy, for his entire 3 years that he was with me, he really delved deeper into the education system. And so it didn't matter what course he was taking. He was a huge advocate for the fact that, you could be learning in so many different places, but unfortunately, we don't value all of that type of learning. He was a self-taught hobby mechanic. And between the ages of grade 10 to grade 12, he bought and sold cars, dirt bikes, snowmobiles, side-by-sides that he would go on YouTube and learn how to fix them and then sell them. And he was making money doing this. And, often he was told in classes that he wasn't a great student and, he wouldn't be going anywhere. And I saw this young man who loved learning, but just in a totally different way and using different skills. But one of the coolest things for him was that I was asked to speak at a PD day for all the English teachers in our board. And he came and was so passionate about this topic and had done so much research that he came and he was my co-presenter. And he spoke to, a couple hundred English teachers and gave his perspective and really opened up the eyes of a lot of people. So it was really cool to watch this kid who had kind of been deemed a really bad student getting up in front of all of these people and sharing his knowledge and his experience.
So if a teacher wants to start on learning journey, how they can take the first step? And I believe that you have lots of stumbles before in your experience. So what advice you would give teachers so that they can start out more smoothly?
Yeah, I think there's two big things. Like the first is that you have to have an open mind. You have to, and this isn't going to happen overnight. That's definitely something that you need to understand, because even myself, somebody who got into teaching already knowing that they wanted to change things, it still took me a while to move away from really, there was this ingrained feeling that if I don't give a test, then I'm not a good teacher. So I think it's sort of having that open mind, finding those other people who are doing things differently and listening. Oftentimes, educators are not necessarily open to listening to new ways of doing things. So that would be sort of my first advice. The second thing is kind of going back to that. This isn't going to happen overnight. my unlearning journey, I think I've been teaching for 17 years. I think it's been ongoing since day one, and I think it's going to continue until I see myself as a lifelong learner. So I think it's going to continue for a long time. But just try something. You don't have to overnight be this teacher where you're doing 100% passion-based individualized projects, because that is extremely overwhelming. But the way I did it was each year I got an inspiration and I tried one thing out around kind of all the other stuff that I was comfortable with. And it's also for the kids too, because you can't just throw it at them right away because they're so used to sort of the traditional way. But if you can take one thing and try it, that to me would be sort of your starting point. And as you go through it, understand and be okay with failure, because it's not all going to work. It's not all going to be perfect, but you won't know unless you try.
So Rebecca, I believe you have tried lots of different teaching methods, but so what are the few ways you try that you found really useful?
Like I said, the traditional sort of deliver material, have the students do, a project or a test, do lessons. And that is what teachers know how to do. But I've evolved into this, I guess you could say 100% passion-based project classroom. And it has, again, been trial and error on how to, because this is so different. I don't collect 30 papers or 30 tests or 30 assignments and then go home and mark them and then hand them back, because that was kind of the routine. That's what I know, and that's what most teachers know. So now I'm more of a project manager, and I've had to have conversations with friends of mine who are actual project managers in, the government. And so it's been a learning process, and it's not finished. But I've found effective ways to give feedback using Google Forms. The one-on-one conversations are so valuable, but you still have to be able to document stuff. And making this transition to at-home learning and the online learning, that actually really helped for me, because I could record our sessions and then I would have a bank of feedback. But yeah, I don't know that, like, with what I'm doing, I don't have an easy answer.
Yeah, but I hear some key components. There is like feedback, more frequent feedback from Google Doc and one-to-one conversation. And then there's a online learning assistant for home learning materials. So that's really great. And you have a program called Social Change Maker. Would you mind telling us more about how you came up with this program and what kids can learn through this program?
Sure, I'd love to. I'm very excited about it. So when we here in Ottawa, we were told that we wouldn't be going back to school in March. I have a daughter who is 12 and a daughter who is 8. And, we started the at-home learning, and her teachers, both of their teachers are phenomenal, and we're sending stuff home. And they had Zoom meetings. But my kids were just really not engaged. And so I had actually thought about offering the Social Change Maker program at our local community centers, sort of in face-to-face, before this all happened. So obviously the face-to-face couldn't happen. And just in talking to some friends and my sister, she's got young kids and whatever, I said, what if I did this, online? What if I offered it online? Would anybody be interested? And so it just kind of started from there. And we ran a 10-week program from April to June, where I had kids from Ontario, Quebec, and England and Scotland in the program. We had 21 kids. And the whole concept behind the Social Change Maker program is very similar to what I've done in the past. I've created what I call the Social Change Maker model, where the kids learn about their strengths, what motivates them, what they're passionate about. I introduce them to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where we sort of delve in and look at different issues that are, throughout the world, but also right here in our own communities. We invite people who are trying to do things to help with the SDGs. So we have a lot of not-for-profits who come in and share what they're doing, and tell us all about that. And then from there, the kids connect with not-for-profit organizations or come up with what they're passionate about. And we learn to create solutions, and we take action. So right now, we finished that first program. It was 10 weeks. And right now we're just kind of coming to the tail end of a second program. And we have some really, really cool projects happening. We've got 2 different video series that go on, one about mental health, one about the LGBTQ plus community. And then we have 2 other projects that are really dealing with anti-racism. One where boys are using Minecraft, where they're going to hold a virtual march. And people are going to march by different historical protests, relating to civil rights. And then another group of girls who are hockey players are trying to get a movement going where they look at racism in hockey. So it's really, really exciting, and we're, connected to lots of different people in the community. And they're, like I said, they work with not-for-profit organizations. And the kids in the program that I'm working with are between the ages of 11 and 14. But then we also offer a program for younger kids. My youngest daughter's in it, and that's ages 7 to 9. Where they're not working on quite as big projects. They have a theme each week, and they do a little action by the end of the week to help that particular theme as a group. So lots going on. And in the fall, I know that you had said I was the founder of Unlearn Academy, but we're just right now going through a rebrand. And yes, we are now called Rise Academy, and I'm going to be offering high school credits for Ontario students in September.
That's great. I'm curious about, you mentioned lots of great projects that the kids can do in Social Change Maker. So how did you help them to define the outcome they want? Because I feel like it's a big problem that they want to solve socially.
Yeah.
And it might be hard for kids to define an end goal. So I'm curious, how did you guide them throughout this process?
Yeah, so this is where I don't even know what, like a backwards sort of model of providing instructions for students, right? So in a traditional classroom, teachers create assignments, and then it says, goal, tasks, maybe there's a rubric, all that sort of thing, and they hand it to the kids, and here are your steps, this is what you have to do. So what happens in our Social Change Maker program is we go through the whole process of, what do you care about? What are you good at? And what motivates you? And from there, we look at an issue and we think, okay, well, how can we pair those things together? So like I said, I have this group of boys who love Minecrafting, and they're great at it. And so then from there, then we say, okay, well, what issue do you want to tackle? And they were really, upset about everything happening in the media and in our world related to racism. And so then we connected with a gentleman by the name of James Delaney, who is on the board of an organization called Block by Block. They use Minecraft to help different places in the world that have poverty and they don't have green space. And anyways, long story short, they use Minecraft to rebuild these areas. And so we set up meetings with the kids and with these people, and we brainstorm and we come up with, okay, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? What is your end goal? And so from there, as we do that, I, as the teacher, sit down and I take my notes and I listen to what they say and, give suggestions. And then we together co-create their to-do lists. And each week we meet up at least once, if not twice, to sort of check in. What did you get done? What do we do? Like, what are our next steps? Do we need another meeting? And so it's just sort of like planning an event, but we do it together, and I provide them with instructions that, like you said, as a kid, they may not think of certain things, or they may not know exactly what to do or where to go. And that's my job, is to meet with them and to make sure that they know what to do.
Wonderful. So last few questions. Is there any books that influence a lot around your thinking? It doesn't need to be any like books that are relevant to teaching, but just in general that affect your own thinking process.
Yeah. Where do I begin? So I've got a bookshelf of these, but I would say I mentioned Peter Gamwell. He's written The Wonder Wall. He's written that specifically for for educators, but also for business. I haven't mentioned this gentleman yet, who has really, really shaped a lot of what I've done, but his name is Don Wettrick, and he is in Indiana. He's written a book called Pure Genius. And it was my roadmap to sort of where I am today. Anything by Seth Godin. I love his books. They're short and to the point, and I follow his blog. Very, very, very good. There's some other authors here. There's a local author. Her name is Jennifer Casa Todd. And she's written a book called Social Media, because that is something else that's a huge part of what I do, is teaching the kids how to connect and to use social media in a positive and a professional way. So that has really influenced. And you know what? I've definitely jumped on the Brené Brown bandwagon. Anything that she has to say, I love. It's all about, taking risks and being vulnerable. And I think that's really, really important as an educator who's willing to make changes, is that they need to be ready to be vulnerable and open themselves up, and letting people know that I'm trying this. I'm not perfect.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I could go, there's so many different,
I think that should be a really great list for now.
Good.
So before we close up, do you have any other thoughts, programs, or workshops you want to share with our listeners?
I think that when you had sent me the questions, one of the questions was advice for new teachers. And I would love for new teachers to, and I know it's scary going in, but try, like right from the beginning, try something new, try something that scares you. And for, veteran teachers, same thing. I write a blog, which I haven't written in a while, but I've taken an Eleanor Roosevelt quote, and it's do one thing every day that scares you. And I think that's really, really good advice to live by.
That's really, really great. So if people want to learn more about your work, how they can find you online?
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'm Mrs. R. Chambers, and I've just started up our Rise Academy social media. So you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, and it's Rise Academy 2020 if they want to hear more about the different programs that we have.
That's great. I know there's a social change maker program. Any other programs that you want to bring up?
In September, it's going to be our Rise Academy, the high school level. It doesn't have a special name. Maybe I should give it a special name. I mean, they're social change makers too, but they're different courses, social science courses from the Ontario curriculum, so they can get credits that go towards their Ontario secondary school diploma. But then that will be, we're close to launching our website. It'll be riseacademy.ca, so they can find us there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing your great work with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. We will put the things mentioned in the interview to the show notes. If you enjoy our show, welcome to share and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.